I am going to be sharing my personal resume that landed me 2 FANG internships and numerous other interview callbacks from other companies, so stay tuned for that. Hello world, it's Becoming her, and today we are talking about your tech resume because let's be real, you need this. I am a senior at Carnegie Mellon University. I am a computer science major, and despite all of the classes that you take as a CS major, they prepare you for 4 years on all the things you need to know on the technical side, and then they're just like, oh yeah, you'll figure out the career side of it. Well, that's why I'm here. I talk about all things computer science related. I give you tips on school stuff and also tips like this video on how to actually land an internship. So let's get started. All right, first things first, basics. Your resume needs to be 1 page. 1 page, no exceptions. I do not care how much you think you should be putting on your resume. It should only be at max 1 page long. Trust me, you're gonna be like,
this is not enough, I need more.
No. The only time you should have a resume that is more than 1 page is if you have lots and lots of relevant industry experience, which is not you. So no excuses, don't do it. You cannot have more than 1 page on your resume. I promise you, everything that the recruiter needs to know can fit in on that 1 page. The next thing that needs to be noted is readable fonts. You don't want to use your regular Times New Roman Arial. You should do something a little bit more unique and eye-catching, but nothing like Comic Sans. Oh God, please don't. Please don't write your resume in Comic Sans. Maybe a recruiter will laugh at it, but no. There are so many fonts out there that are readable and clean and nice that are not Times New Roman, so get rid of it. Choose something nice and readable and unique. The next one is a big one. You need to be using LaTeX templates for your resume. You ever wonder how people have all these beautiful resumes and where they get their templates from? It's LaTeX. If you've ever taken a real math class in college, you will probably know what LaTeX is. It is basically a really fancy text editor. It's not like your Microsoft Word or Google Docs where you're just kind of italicizing things. No. This is super versatile. It allows you to draw all those beautiful math formulas that I hate. Sorry, I'm not a math person. Off topic. It allows you so much more variability, flexibility, allows you to say, I want the lines to be spaced like 0.2 millimeters apart. As you can see, it is very specific. Definitely a good skill to learn. The only other way to take math notes is by hand, but if you're the type of person who likes to type, you're gonna need LaTeX. There are lots of pre-made LaTeX templates out there for you that you can choose from. My resume comes from one of those templates, and it makes it so much nicer to read and so much more unique than anything you could possibly make in a Word document or in a Google Doc. A key thing to keep in mind is that recruiters only spend 5 to maybe, if you're lucky, 10 seconds reading through your resume. So they're gonna be skimming, they're gonna be glancing. You need to have all of your sections nice and outlined. Everything needs to have clear headings. You don't want everything to just be a paragraph blob of your text. This is not a CV, this is not an essay, this is a resume. Anything that you can do to make it easier for a recruiter to read and find the information that they're looking for, the better. Which means that white space is extremely important. If you have paragraphs on your resume, the recruiter's not gonna wanna read that. They wanna see bullet points, they wanna see nice white space. It's much more comfortable to the eyes and just a lot more appealing in general. Everything has to be presented in chronological order. I guess reverse chronological order. You want the most recent things first on anything that you do, projects, extracurriculars, awards, whatever, and then you want to work your way backwards in time because we're assuming that the most recent things are the most impressive things on your resume. And if it's not, what's happening? Why are you progressing backwards? This is not how this is supposed to go, guys. Huge thing. Do not have anything from high school on your resume, except if you're a freshman. You can keep that stuff on your resume throughout freshman year, but the moment you finish freshman year, you gotta get rid of it. So that means that during your freshman year, you have to be pumping out projects because as soon as you finish, you can't put that high school stuff on your resume anymore. But obviously, if you're a freshman, you don't have anything coming in that you have done in college yet, so it is okay to have your high school awards, your high school clubs, your high school projects on your resume. That's fine. Anytime you have a project, anytime you have an extracurricular or an award, they should have a date that goes along with them. I think the cleanest way is probably just to have a special column on the right side. That way it's not mixing up everywhere and it doesn't align incorrectly. So include your dates. And the last basic thing that you should do, but a very nice touch, is name your file your last name, comma, your first name, because recruiters will be downloading 20, I don't know how many resumes at the same time, and they're looking through them, and it is just so nice when they download your resume. They're like, oh, who is this person? They look pretty good. They can just see your file name and they can pull it over to their portal or whatever. I don't know, I'm not a recruiter, but I know that recruiters have said this is a super nice touch. They love when candidates do that. Also, make sure that it's in PDF format because that is just the format that recruiters prefer the best. All right, we are moving on to all of the sections that you should have on your resume. I'm gonna break it down from top to bottom and talk about all the things that each section should include and things that you should be wary of as well. First up is your header. This is where you are putting your name. Your name should be the largest thing on your entire resume, okay? They gotta know what candidate they're looking at, but you don't want it to be way too big. It should be proportional. You don't want it to take up too much space because trust me, you're gonna be like,
I don't have enough space. I need to make my name too small.
no, it needs to be big, okay? Big and maybe even in a different color. And underneath your names is a great place to put all of your contacts and all of the links that you have. Contacts being your phone number, your email, address, ways that they can contact you. Links are for things like LinkedIn. Don't put your other social media, it's really not necessary, but LinkedIn for sure. And then GitHub. You should be linking your GitHub profile. That way they can pop on over there and maybe look at some of the projects that you've done. You can add personal website. If you have that, definitely link your personal website as well. All right, next up is education. This should be towards the top because recruiters want to know what school you're from. This is where you put your university and also your GPA and expected graduation date. Now you're saying,
What if my GPA isn't great?
if it's above a 3, you should just put it down. If it's below a 3, you can omit it. Generally, companies don't really care too much about what your GPA is, but if you don't put it on there, they're gonna assume that it's really bad. So above a 3, just put it on there, it's fine. If you are a freshman and you don't have a GPA yet because you don't have one until the end of your first semester or first trimester or whatever, then that's okay. Just put your high school underneath what your college is and put your high school GPA there. The last thing that you definitely need to have there is the expected graduation date. No, do not put, I'm a freshman, I'm a sophomore, I'm a junior. No, just put your expected graduation date because the recruiters don't care whether you're a sophomore, junior, whatever. Some people are graduating in 3 years, some people graduate in 3.5 years. So that is not necessarily a good gauge. What they care about is what time they can actually hire you. What year can they hire you? Say expected graduation date, May 2022, and be done with it because then they'll know, oh, okay, so if they graduate in the spring of 2022, then that means that we can hire them after that. So that's all that they care about. Don't bother putting what level you are, just put your expected graduation date. Okay, moving on to the juicy part of the resume. This is the part that is probably the most important thing on your resume, so you really want to get this right. It is your experiences section. Basically, experiences refer to internships and other previous jobs that pertain to the field. So you probably don't have too many of those, that's okay, but you want to put your internships at the top of this section. One, it's chronological. You probably didn't have internships in high school and then no internships in college. Put your internships at the top. Those are your real job experiences, and that is the thing that if you have them, you'll wanna flex them. Put it at the top. Next, you want to have your projects. This is crucial if you do not have any internships, and if you do have internships, you still wanna put some of the projects that you have on there to fill out your resume because chances are you don't have a ton of internships. And if you do, then I don't know why you're watching this video, your resume is probably fine. Going back to projects, as I said, this is the most important part of your resume if you have no prior internships or prior experience, simply because this is the only thing that recruiters can go off of to see whether you are a good candidate. What are they gonna do? Look at your homework problems? So the only thing that they can look at are the projects on your experiences section to know that you're not totally bluffing and that you kind of know what you're doing when it comes to these things. I have a whole entire video on how to basically spice up your resume with all of these projects. So I will link that in the info card and also in the description below. Check that out if you are having a hard time coming up with things to put on your resume. One thing I will note is that hackathons are a great way to get projects onto your resume, and put your hackathon project on your resume, even if you don't win. It's great if you did win your hackathon, but if you didn't, don't just be like,
I'm not gonna put it on my resume. I can't put it on my resume now.
because how the heck are recruiters supposed to know that you even did this project? They don't care if you won it. The fact that you have even done it is wonderful. So just put it on your resume. Another reason why the experiences section is super important is because this is where the resume keywords are coming in. If you don't know, lots of companies do some sort of resume pre-screening, sometimes with an AI. They will basically look through your resume and pull out any keyword that they want for the role that maybe the recruiter set. That way they can kind of filter out your resume and separate the people that they might not want from the people that they might want. The most natural place to have the keywords in your resume are in the projects and experiences section. This is where you want to talk about your web development projects or your ML projects, your ML research. Definitely put your research position in the experiences section of your resume. That goes above any projects. It's the same thing as internships. Research and internships go at the top. Everything else goes underneath. Your experiences are the most natural place to fill your resume with good keywords. Keywords include things like web development, certain web development languages like JavaScript, PHP, ML, AI, iOS development, Android development, security. All of those things count as keywords. And so if you have projects that include any of those things, you want to make sure that you put those words into the resume, because that's going to help you pass those resume filters. These companies have so many people applying to them that they're not actually going to assign a recruiter to look through every single resume. So that's why they have a sort of resume filter that kicks your resume out before you even get to a recruiter's eyes, which is why they never get back to you, because no one has even looked at your resume. You don't want that to happen. So put your keywords in your experiences section. At the same time, this does not give you a pass to lie about your projects. I hope you would know that, but sometimes people need a reminder. Don't lie about your projects. If you don't know an area, you should go and explore it. Learn and actually make a project on it. Follow some tutorials, mash them together, make a nice project, and be like, yeah, I did this thing with this technology and that was cool. Or I did this thing with this technology and that sucked and I don't want to do it, but at least you can put it on your resume now. Now you're wondering,
How the heck do I describe my project?
because this really does matter. You do not want to just say, oh, I was a sweet intern, and then have a blobby paragraph description about it. The recruiter's not going to want to read that. Bullet points are your friend. Bullet point the most important stuff that you want them to know. This includes what company did you intern for? And if it's a small company, if it's a startup, if it's not something that most people will recognize, if it's not Fortune 500 or whatever, then you want to also put a quick description about the company. Next, you want to put what role you had for your internship. Was this a SWE internship? Was this a backend internship? Was this a Android development internship? You want to have those keywords on there, and it gives a better description of the things that you did. And then underneath that, you should have all of your bullet points listing out, these are the things that I worked on. This was the tech base that I touched. This was the language that I coded in. These were some soft skills that I had to pull out in order to make everything work nicely. A very similar situation for the projects. You should have the name of the project. What was it for? Was it for a class? Name the class. Was it for a hackathon? Name the hackathon. What language did you use? Quick description of what exactly your project does. Is it an app? What is the app for? Who is it for? Is it a game? What does the game do? How do you play? all of that stuff, have it on your resume. Make sure to include those keywords in there. You can also link your projects, whether you have the code on a GitHub public repo or if you have it on some sort of hackathon page. You can link your projects. In fact, you should link your projects, but only hyperlinks. Nothing looks more unprofessional than a YouTube link spelled out in the middle of your resume. One, because it's stupid if it's a paper copy, and if it's not a paper copy, it doesn't look good. Usually I'll say demo or more info in a different color to make sure that people understand it's hyperlinked so that you can have that take them to a page with your project where they can watch a video about the things that you did or look through your code if they want to. I will note that a lot of recruiters don't generally look through your GitHub stuff because recruiters aren't engineers. They don't understand code. They don't understand any of that stuff. They're just an HR person. What they do understand is, oh, this person has a lot of key tech words and tech languages on their resume. They're probably a good candidate. Let me send them over and they can get interviewed. And the interviewer might look at your projects. I've had one interviewer say that they've looked at my resume and they actually looked at one of my hackathon projects that I did because it was something pertaining to AI and they themselves work on an AI team, so they were curious about that. So definitely have those links on there if you have some sort of video or description that you've already made for them. But most of the time, they probably won't look at it. Don't fret it if you don't have huge documentation for everything. But this is also why you can't just lie about your projects, because if they actually ask you about it, you're screwed. A kind of shady thing that people do on their resume where they will put a bunch of keywords like AI, ML, React somewhere on their resume, but in white font so that it is completely invisible to anyone who's actually looking at it, but the resume screen programs will see them and then they'll pass you through. I am not advocating for it, but at the end of the day, it'll go to a recruiter. A recruiter won't see those words, so you're not technically claiming that you actually have any of this experience. So you be the judge of that, whether you want to try that out or not. Underneath your experiences section should be your extracurriculars. Yes, this sounds like a college application. Extracurriculars, literally the clubs that you do in college. Obviously, if you're a freshman, you can put some high school clubs on there, things that are relevant to tech stuff, but also things that are not relevant to tech stuff. That is totally fine. You can have interests outside of tech. In fact, a lot of people prefer those who have interests outside of tech. You're gonna have a whole life, you guys. Your job should not be your life. That's unhealthy. But if you have cool tech interests, that is a great place to put them down. You'll see I have stuff like dance club, tour guide things on my resume. It's totally fine. Just put them on your resume. It shows that you are a three-dimensional person with other interests and not just a two-dimensional robot. They want people who can think and who can be creative and problem solve and not just spew out code that they tell them to do. So don't be afraid to put your interesting club, your interesting hobbies on there. In fact, recruiters might be like, hey, I love swimming too. This candidate's kind of interesting. Let me go back up and check the rest of their extracurriculars, especially if it's some sort of niche thing. You never know when you'll find someone who has a common interest as you, and automatically that's like, oh, I have some sort of connection with this person. I like them a little bit more. Along with that, you can have some sort of awards section or put it into your extracurriculars, put it at the top. If you only have maybe one award, and it's kind of weird to have a whole section dedicated to that one award. But if you have multiple, that's great. Put that on there as well. If you were a freshman, you can put some high school awards on there, things like National Honor Society, any sort of GPA awards. You can put that on your resume. Everybody else probably just stick to scholarships and hackathons that you won, those sorts of awards or honors on your resume. The last section that your resume should have is a skills section. This is the place where you're talking about your programming languages. What languages are you proficient in? A lot of people will say, I have a 4 out of 5 on Python or a 1 out of 5 on C++. Basically, the ranking is relative to you. Obviously, a 4 would just mean that you feel very good and proficient in this language, and a 1 would mean I have barely touched this, but at least I have touched this. Do not put a 5 out of 5 on anything. Do not, because you are not an expert, especially if you interview at very large tech companies, sometimes they like to troll people and be like,
oh, this guy thinks that they're an NLP expert?
We're gonna take our senior person who is actually an expert in NLP, and we're gonna have them interview you. So don't put a 5 out of 5. People don't like it when you're cocky like that. Max put a 4 out of 5 to show that you think you have a lot of experience, but obviously you're humble enough to be like, I ain't no expert in this thing. This is just a language that I feel very comfortable in. Put as many of the languages that you've touched in your classes on there. This is the place to do that. This is also the place to put things like Unix. Put Git on there to show that you know how to use repositories and how to document your code so that you don't screw up and lose all of it. Get it? Got it? Commit it. If you understood that, you should leave a like down below. Okay, those were all of the sections that you should have on your resume. I've walked you through everything, all of the things that you need to know about each of those sections in grave detail. This is the part where I share what my resume looks like. You can have 2 columns instead of the 1 column approach that I took. Just be careful, that might get a little bit more cluttered because you have less room to put all of your sentences and your bullet points. So be mindful of that. This is just an example that I wanted to give you guys to make sure that you kind of understood all the things that I was talking about. As you can see, I have hyperlinks next to the title of my project so that you can click on demos. I described the startup that I worked for because people probably don't know what that is, and then gave more context on things that I worked on in my internships. All of my dates go in chronological order. They're all on this side in 1 column. That way it's not cluttering all of the information on the left. There is something that fills up the space on the right side as well. Definitely feel free to make it you, make it unique. After all, this is kind of a representation of your person and to an extent a little bit of your personality. So you want it to be a little bit fun, but mostly professional. All right, guys, those are all the things that you need to know about your resume and how to make it wonderful and land you at those interviews. If you want to know about how to pass your interviews, how to pass your online assessments, I will be coming out with videos about those very soon. So make sure that you subscribe to this channel and ring the notification bell. That way you won't miss the next step on your journey to getting your internships and getting your jobs. I will see you next time. It's Becoming Her, signing out.